When we went to the Bernabeu in 2011, we won 2-0 and Messi scored both goals. It was the Champions League semi-finals. We won it eventually from Manchester United. But the thing about that match, that Bernabeu match that stuck with me, was Guardiola gave his first team debut to some kid named Sergi Roberto, right? I remember a Brazilian pundit talking about it. He said, "Hey, Guardiola is crazy. I mean, besides going to the Bernabeu, winning 2-0, basically going to the Champions League final, he just pulled some kid. I know it was the 91st minute, but he did it." And that's the main thing I want to talk about today. It's about La Masia. Okay, so I know I'm tired of hearing we cannot have Xavi, Iniesta, Messi, Busquets, and Piqué every single year. It's the phrase everyone likes to talk. It's the phrase everyone likes to say, and I'm aware of that. Those are legendary, world class, the best players we could have hoped for, and one of the best group of players in history. I know that won't repeat itself easily, but are we sure La Masia is being handled in a way that the most promising talents are being at least developed in a way that we can try them at the first team? I don't think so, because it's been 8 years since the last La Masia player has become a first team starter. His name is Sergio Busquets. Okay, so since 2008 hasn't happened, and that's a long time, especially when you think we have seen players like Deulofeu, Adama, Grimaldo, and now Bartra is leaving as well. He's going to Borussia Dortmund. And are we sure La Masia is working in a way that the most talented players are being actually developed and given the minutes and the chances in the first team? So when did this start to change? When did we go from Sergio Roberto having minutes at the Bernabeu to make his first team debut in the Champions League semi-final to having players like Deulofeu and Bartra and Adama and Grimaldo leaving like that? The difference is, and I know people will doubt it, but during the Laporta years, La Masia was run by Alexanco and it was run by Benahiges. Those were the two guys. Alexanco as an ex-player, he was our ex-captain. Think about Piqué today. That was Alexanco then, okay? Alexanco was the one center back we had that besides being a leader and everything, he used to go up front and score important goals. And so when Laporta took over, not only did he choose Benahiges, was someone who knew La Masia and knew how to run it, but he chose Alexanco as well. Someone who had the respect, someone who knew how to handle players, and he's a guy who doesn't let anyone get advantages, you know. So he would treat a kid as a kid, and he would treat a parent as a parent, and an agent as an agent, and so on. So Laporta gave them that, and during the years that they stayed there, uh, the communication between every single La Masia team, including the first team, it was clear, you know. So Alexanco and Benahides, they were responsible for everything, the first team planning as well, and Barça B and Juvenil A and Juvenil B and all the other kiddie teams. And the coaches talked to each other. Okay, so it was normal back then to see Guardiola talking to Luis Enrique, talking about his B team players, talking about the planning, talking about the minutes. It was, you know, a unified organism as one, La Masia as one. And what happened was when Mr. Sandro Rosell, remember the devil himself, took over, he saw fit to change that. He fired Alex Sanko, he fired Benaíjes, and then Mr. Guilherme Amor took over. An ex-player, one of our ex-players, but who happens to be a close friend to Mr. Rossell. And what they did was they removed this unity. La Masia was no longer unity. La Masia now, Barça B and Juvenil A were now supposed to be handled by our sporting director, Mr. Zubizarreta. Amor and Puig, they would take care of the other teams, from Juvenil B to the kiddies and everything. But they broke the unity. La Masia ceased to be this unity, where everything is supposed to come together to develop players, to make sure not only their development would be completed, but they would be useful to the first team. Rossell broke that. Can you see the timestamp here? Around 2010, 2011, because Rossell took over in 2010. And what has happened since? What has happened since is, besides putting Amor where he was, Sandro Rossell had to deal with Luis Henrique's departure. He went to coach Roma, as you know. And who was supposed to take over the B team? His name is Oscar Garcia. He just won another league. Israel? I think he's in there. No, sorry. Yeah, he's in Austria. He's with Red Bull Salzburg. And Rossell kicked him off the club. He was promised the position. Guardiola wanted him. Luis Henrique prepared him. He had a very successful Juvenil A team where Sergio Samper was there even. And Rossell kicked him off. You know why Sandro Rossell kicked him off? Because he was really close friends with Johan Cruijff. Yes, that's it. That's his reason to have removed the coach that was programmed, that was expected and was promised the Barça B job. And then a guy like Eusebio took over. And what has happened since? We went from having this unified thing that was no longer unified, and we had a coach who, even though he has played for us, he's not from La Masia. Eusebio is not a La Masia player. Eusebio is from the Basque country, okay? And we have lost a great generation of players, really promising players that were on the B team and were supposed to get minutes and thrive on the first team, and they didn't. They didn't, because the focus changed completely. Luis Henrique is a really competitive guy, but he still developed his B team on the ways of La Masia. So he developed the players following La Masia and made them competitive. That's why his B team is just as great as Guardiola's B team. Eusebio did not follow that. Eusebio did his own thing, a very result-driven team that in the end got us relegated from second to third division. And that is not the case. I mean, when Bartomeu said he wasn't worried that we went to the third division, he's right. I mean, when the B team had Puyol and Iniesta, I think we were in the third division as well. It wasn't a problem. The problem lies on the fact that they changed it, They changed the way. The team was different, a different organism from La Masia. While this happened, Guardiola had left. Then we had Tito Villanova, who when Guardiola's last 2 years as Barcelona's coach, Barça B and La Masia Juvenil A players, they played over 2,000 minutes on each of Guardiola's last 2 seasons. When Tito took over, that number dropped to around 1,300 minutes, which is still good, but not nearly as much. And we noted the first big blow to this La Masia, to this Barcelona plan, which was Thiago's departure. And let me be very clear here. Thiago did not leave because he wanted to. Thiago did not leave because Guardiola took him from us. Thiago did not leave because he wanted more money. Thiago left because he was kicked off the club. I was told by a journalist very famous, who is very famous in Spain, a journalist who is so connected to the club and to Guardiola himself. He went to Munich to write the book about Guardiola's first season at Bayern Munich. And when I was talking about this, because I was sure, had been told Thiago was sold, he DM'd me. He sent me a message that, Lucas, what you're saying is completely right. He was at Munich, he knew Pep, and he knew Thiago. So Thiago was sold to pay for Neymar. That's a fact. So our planning under Tito, I'm not blaming him, blaming José, came to the perfect idea of selling someone like Thiago, who had all the capabilities, everything to be the one who could take over, or help Xavi and Iniesta on their inevitable, when they were getting older and everything, and they sold him. And that followed, more, you guys know, all the players that have left. And then José did one better when Tito sadly could no longer be with us and wasn't around because he passed away. He hired a coach named Tata Martino, who has never been expected to coach Barcelona. Zubizarreta had a list of several coaches he would, follow and prepare in case we needed another coach, because they knew about Tito's situation. And José pulled Tata out of his ass. No, Messi never asked for Tata Martino as Barcelona's coach. Messi never met Tata before that haunted season. Tata Martino's is Messi's father's idol, not Messi's. Okay? It came from Sandro Rosell himself. I won't even talk about that season, but since then, what has happened to the players, from the B team and La Masia and how many minutes they've had. It's only gotten worse. And during Tata Martino's season, 73 minutes. That's how many minutes, and only 3 players played for him. Adama, Patrick, and some other guy. I forgot now. So we went from over 2,000 minutes during Guardiola, for around 1,300 with Tito, and now 70 minutes with Tata. So when Luis Enrique came along, since he was, still seen as one of the best La Masia coaches of all time, he is one of the best Barca B coaches of all time, people were really excited, even I was, because, and when he took over, on the first 2 or 3 matches, Munir and Sandro had played more minutes, since they were still B players. They had played more minutes than the whole season before with Tata Martino. They played like 144 minutes in the first 2 or 3 matches, and we were really excited, But then the bad news started to come up. Deulofeu, who undoubtedly, without a doubt, since Thiago left and Busquets had already taken over, is our most talented La Masia player. The most talented La Masia player to have come out of Luis Enrique just kicked him out. He spent, I think, like 2 or 3 weeks during the summer preparations, and he was sent off to Sevilla or Everton. I don't recall which one of those teams he went to now. But the fact of the matter is, we were expecting the coach someone who had previously been a successful coach at Barça B, to develop the players, the up and coming players from La Masia, to make them fit the first team. And Luis Enrique did not want that. He chose not to, because the focus now, and I don't blame Luis Enrique personally, this is a club decision, is to be competitive. We no longer form players. We aim to be competitive at all times. That's why this season we came to a point where Barça B is being coached by a clown. I will even say his name. I don't even remember now. It's like, again, like Eusebio earlier, I forgot. I mean, yeah, I forgot really. And it came to the point where Barça B has less La Masia players than the first team. Now imagine that. Barça B is not supposed to be, oh, Barça B is competing on the third division or the second division. It's irrelevant. It is completely irrelevant. Okay? And imagine that the Barça B team has less La Masia players than the first team. That's insane. But that's the focus they want now, is to be competitive, to be able to get results. For example, Deulofeu left, Adama left, and the thing about both is now you can say no because they went to the teams there now and they haven't been successful. So the club was right, Luis Enrique was right. Have you considered the option that both these players have never been actually developed? That they aren't ready yet? Because Adama went from La Masia, went from a season in second division where he completed more than 170 dribbles. Now you're telling me a player like that, a true winger, who can dribble as much, who is strong, who is extremely pacey, and who is able to give assists, could not have been given like the chance to be developed to help us? Because Adama is way better than Tello has ever been or will ever be. Better than Cuenca, better than most attackers we have on La Masia nowadays. And he went to West Ham. He went to Aston Villa. And what the hell does Aston Villa, who is a team who has never had a philosophy, will play regarding to whatever shit coach is there? How is that team going to develop a player like that? So yeah, we sold him, I know. So why add a buyback option if the player went to, fucking Aston Villa? He was never going to be developed there. And I know the plan with Deulofeu was different because he was sold to Everton and everything and had Roberto Martinez, who has now been fired. But the fact of the matter is, these buyback options are useless because they're going to teams that have nothing to do with our style, and most likely they won't be developed. That's why I'm really happy now that Koeman is about to be announced as Everton's manager, so maybe Deulofeu's career can still be saved. He can still be completed, he can be properly developed into a player that, can be the world-class player he is supposed to be, because he has everything to be one. And coming back to our first team, Luis Enrique, besides sending away Deulofeu and Adama, he decided that La Masia coaches would no longer be allowed to watch the first team training sessions. I repeat, La Masia coaches are not allowed to watch the first team's training sessions. So we went from a reality when everything was under Alexandro and all the coaches talked to each other and Guardiola would regularly talk to Luis Enrique, to having a coach, I don't know if it is his decision or from the board, as I told you, I'm not blaming him, I'm blaming the whole plan, that blocked La Masia coaches from watching the first team. I mean, it's absurd. We are now a club that is disconnected, not a unity anymore. So that's why we are in a situation where it's been 8 years since our last La Masia player has become a starter, and things don't look good. I mean, maybe this statistic, this fact will change next season because Alves has left Juventus and the club doesn't plan on signing any right backs, and Sergio Roberto will most likely become our starting right back, and you know, him and Aleix Vidal will take over. But that isn't the main thing, you know. The sad thing is that we, after Rosell took over and continue under Bartomeu, and the people who, because after Bartomeu took over, he then fired Guillermo Amor and Puig because of the FIFA banning thing, the FIFA ban, yeah. And then, yeah, by the way, it wasn't their fault. It was Bartomeu's own fault because he was sporting director back then, and FIFA warned our club about the rules they had broken. But guess what? They didn't care. So, for 14 months, Bartomeu had been told about the FIFA ban, and he did nothing. So, he fired these guys, Amor and Puig, for nothing, just to save his own skin. And now he put Roura, who was Tito's assistant, and Altimira, who are people who, okay, they know La Masia, but they have no experience running it. And they're still running this place that is divided. And that's our reality. That is our reality. So, in 6 years, we have come from having a La Masia where the plan was clear, when everybody was talking to each other, and they were worried about developing players. Now, they're worried about being competitive. Barca B has to be competitive, the Juvenil A has to be competitive, the first team has to be competitive. That has never been the focus, to compete. Right now, for example, when we won the league away against Granada, something happened that just a few people noticed. When we were already 2-0 up, and then Suarez scored the third goal, who was subbed in? Arda Turan was subbed in. Can you see the difference? I mean, when we won 2-0 at the Bernabeu back in 2011, Sergio Roberto was subbed in. A La Masia kid. Says, hey kid, this is great. We are playing great football at the Bernabeu. We won. We are going to the Champions League final and you're playing. Enjoy this. Enjoy your debut. And this season, Sergio Roberto has been one of the main players. He has helped us a lot, especially at the Bernabeu. The 4-0. The 4-0. He gave the assist for Suarez's first goal. He was amazing. And he had been very consistent to us this whole season. And what happened the last game? He was not given minutes. Arda Turan was. And you know when Arda Turan is going to fit this team, is going to be useful to us? Never. One of the worst signings we've made, and time won't heal it. And that's why I've chosen to talk about Sergio Roberto in the beginning and the end of this video, because him being subbed in at the Bernabeu in 2011 just proved how everything was connected, how everything was being planned back then, and just proves how everything is just completely set apart nowadays. Arda Turan did not help us win the league at all. He maybe even got in the way because he didn't help us. He was clumsy. And Sergio Roberto did. And he was important. He's a La Masia player. And he wasn't given the minutes. And that's the thing about the minutes, Do you think those 2-3 minutes he played at the Bernabeu in 2011 helped Sergio Roberto's development? No. Because the actual playing time was short. But the trust, he knew he was in a system, he was in a place that knew and cared about his future. We don't have that anymore. We don't have for we know how La Liga is. Here you guys know, right? I mean, 80% of the matches, especially the Camp Nou matches, we easily win them. And then by the second half, you have those like 20, 25, the last few minutes. And we could usually get some kid from La Masia, from Barça B, and just give them. Let them have fun, make the rotations, make everyone rest. And that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen because we don't care about developing players anymore. It doesn't happen because we don't even have actual talent in Barca B anymore, just a band of some guys they signed. Because remember, first team has more La Masia players than the B team now. And that's it, you know. That's what I want to talk to you guys about, how everything has changed and how Sergio Roberto is the perfect example of that. Because he most likely will be the first La Masia player in the last 8 years to become a first team starter. But he shows perfectly how we went from an organism, not just because we had Guardiola. I'm talking about the club's organization as a whole, to being the player that doesn't even get a few minutes when we are finally winning the league because the coach and the board sign a player like Arda Turan. And that's just sad. That is sad. And as long as we don't fix that and start to plan, for the future and to have a unified system again, things don't look good. And we'll keep seeing Deulofeu away, Adama away, Denis Suarez still not wanting to come back, and Bartra being sold for peanuts, and Montoya leaving while we sign someone like Douglas, who's going to be really helpful to us. And that saddens me. That saddens me because everything was going right. And maybe these players won't ever become, first team players or world class players. But are we really sure we developed them enough? We gave them the minutes, we gave them the chances to? I don't know. I hope the club starts to see things differently and just go back to the way things were before, because they were working just fine. And using this because you only have one Xavi and one Iniesta and one Messi in a lifetime excuse, it's poor. You guys know it's poor. And yeah, well, I think after this guy passed away, I'm not surprised. I'm only worried that we have only been winning as much because we followed, this idea that he had, and now we no longer do. That does worry me for the future. And well, this video is long, most people won't care much about it, but as long as Messi is around, most people and the board and the coach won't have to worry about it, right? As long as Piqué is around, Busquets is around, Iniesta is around, Messi is around, and Suarez, even though he isn't from Masia. But in 5 years from now, we really have players who are going to be able to keep the damage they've done to La Masia hidden. That's the question we want to ask, right? Yeah. See you next time. And, let's hope they do something stupid and change their minds for once. That would be good, wouldn't it? Both of them will like that, I think. Both Messi and Cruijff would be happy. Because Messi values that a lot. He owes everything to that. And nowadays we won't see anyone owing just as much as Messi does to us. Because we cared about developing him. We haven't cared much since then.